On the profile interview segment this week, I'll be speaking with the President of the Nigerian Labour Congress, Comrade Ajaero. It brings us up to speed on why it's important to aggressively drive the implementation of the new national minimum wage at the state level, while also highlighting expectation of Congress from the Ministry of Labour. It's good to have you on the program. A lot has been happening in the world of work, especially as regards the welfare of workers. As the President of the Nigerian Labour Congress, I would like to ask you, why is it of utmost importance for Congress to go on aggressive implementation of the new national minimum wage at the state level?
Well, I think every organization works with their history, and that history haunts them. Our history from the immediate and immediate past seem to be what has been necessitating the steps we take. We realize that even the 30,000 minimum wage were either implemented in breach or were not implemented in some states. I will use a state as example, Zamfara State. We had finished negotiation and signed agreement on the 70,000 minimum wage before they started announcing that they would not pay 30,000. And what that means is what anybody can't explain. So we needed a renewed vigor to make sure that when we sign an agreement, that agreement is implemented. And the whole essence of collective bargaining is having an agreement. And the whole essence of having an agreement is to have an implementable agreement. And the whole essence of having an implementable agreement is equally to have an enforceable agreement. And the law is clear on the issue of enforcement. The very moment it becomes a law, any of the parties can enforce it. And then if we sign the agreement in around June and it becomes a law in July, and between July and December, states are not ready to implement, then it requires a different approach, which is exactly what we are doing. And if you watch, as at the December 1st that we gave as deadline, a lot was achieved. There are states that were even meeting at that December 1st. Some states had already, paid to meet up with the deadline. Some states even went to the houses of labor leaders, or even some met them in the church for it to be concluded. Now, we have gotten, some of them from information we are getting, did not pay, but they got an agreement of arrears and all that. But we equally had a committee to ensure this. So we are waiting for our committee to give us feedback, state-by-state feedback on what needs to be done. So you can see that, the way we are going about it, we are trying to conclude this action as soon as possible so that we will be preparing for the next minimum wage. Because one of the cardinal achievements of the Tinubu administration is reduction of the tenure. We went in there with 2 years review in view of the prevalent economic situation. That anything, no price stays the same, at the same level for even 1 year. And we insisted on 2 years, and he said no. And we got 3 years. So you can see that 6 months gone into the other minimum wage. We have about 2.5 years. And we can't be talking about implementation till the next 1 year. That's not it. So that's one of the reasons why we are following it up, and we want to follow it up to its logical conclusion. 70,000 is not big enough. And then now to have a problem in paying it, you start to wonder whether the people are living in mass.
Okay, talking about Ebonyi State, what has been the feedback so far? The state governor threatened to sack workers who refuse to go to work because they have not started enjoying the new national minimum wage signed into law by the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. How would you react to this?
Well, does he have such powers? The answer is heck no. Public servants have enjoy statutory flavor. You don't sack them on the pages of newspaper or on the television. So that shows you the infantile disposition of the governor. He doesn't even have not even sat down to study the public service rule. So in the first instance, you start to wonder. So the threat aspect of it, equally shows you that this guy is not a Democrat. When you see tyrants, that are not quite disposed to social dialogue, that are not quite disposed to the tenets of democracy, that's how they behave. What he needed to do was to ask his head of service if he doesn't want to invite them for meeting, and then everybody will stay their position. But he chose to give threats, and that threat had never worked, and it will not work. But by that threat, he has challenged us. So I think we are going to engage him, and this is going to affect him throughout his tenure. And even when he's seeking re-election, it's showing us that there is a tyrant there who doesn't want to have a dissenting voice, from the workers. So that's the situation in Ebonyi.
And are you waiting for the first sack letter to be released before Congress will let us know what the next line of action will be in that particular state?
Nothing prevents him from giving even sack letter before he said that. That is within him. But from the time he made that statement, you can see that we reacted, just unlike any other state. And we have asked the private sector to get involved. The electricity union has spoken. The NUPENG has spoken. The bank unions have spoken. Some other unions have spoken. And then we'll see how far, by end of today or tomorrow, we'll assess the situation and know, the next step to be taken. So he is going to engage. In fact, the way it happened now, the workers there can't call off a strike without recourse to us, the national. So that was how he externalized it, because they were working based on directive, and he threatened them. So it's now every union directs their leaders in there. They can't, is beyond him. Ordinarily, if he has invited them to meet with them, they can go into all manner of agreements. Now that he has met us, he made me to even issue a statement from national. We're interested in that state.
Is there any updates as regards the consequential adjustment which arose because of the new national minimum wage? What are the expectations from Labour, owing to the fact that we have lots of workers that have been complaining that what they've received is not what they were actually expecting?
The issue of consequential adjustment, normally, the NLC does not, at the national, doesn't go into it. We go into having with the TVC, having a national minimum wage. And when we finish, the National Public Service Negotiating Council goes to with the head of service of the Federation and the Salaries and Wages Commission to look at that issue. This year, there was a lot of distortion in it. And by the time we realized, they had signed an agreement. So, and the NLC is not usually party to that agreement. But in order to make sure that what we signed as 70,000 minimum wage enjoys the benefit of even what was agreed at National Public Service Negotiating Council, we asked the state councils of the NLC to take charge, and not the Public Service Negotiating Council in the states, so that we can hold them responsible for whatever will be the outcome of their deliberation. However, if you are to take what the National Public Service Negotiating Council agreed on at the national level, stricto sensus, you will discover that it was about 89,000. The least you can get in that table will be 77,000. Now, in implementing it, alleging to be following what those guys did, people are still now paying 70,000. Anybody paying 70,000 is not in conformity with that circular that was released by the National Public Service Negotiating Council. But because it has been announced that minimum wage is 70,000, they are bastardizing it. So probably after all this, we look at the tables, because the ones that sign agreement in the states, right, they are going to forward the tables and the agreement to our committee so that we'll review it and move forward. We are not handling all these things together, but we'll look at them state by state, table by table, and discover to the level, to the extent. Because some people are saying that, oh, they add 10,000 to their money, they add 5,000, whatever. Is that really, what we negotiated? But that's another step. Until they get this table, you won't know the level of, compliance that we have.
Recently in the news, the new Minister for Labour, Employment and Productivity said that his job description does not entail creating jobs for citizens. How would you react to this? And has there been any conversation between the newly appointed minister and organized labor?
If I ask you now what is his job, you will not be able to respond to me. If I ask you now that the NLC doesn't even know whether a minister has been appointed, you would think one is being funny. So probably he would define his job. Probably his job does not include, relating with labor, relating with NLC, relating with TVC. Probably that doesn't. So until such a man tells you his job, it will be difficult to comment. Because today, whether the man is yellow or is black or is tall, is short, I'm not sure I know. So that's where we are. And ordinarily, the minister in such a sector cannot make pronouncements. The stakeholders normally come together. If his job is not employment, then which workers is he relating with? If there are no workers, there will be no, there will be no Minister of Labour. He will not be there, So why is it Minister of Labour and Employment? I'm trying to ask you, why is the Minister of Labour and Employment? So if his job is not employment, so maybe he's Minister of Labour alone. Employment is not the second leg on. And if it is Minister of Labour again, has he met with Labour? Is he doing that? So those are issues that I don't want to comment on. So it doesn't seem as if one is we are focused now. Now with what is happening in states, in companies over minimum wage, has he come out with a statement? Does he know his job? You're a Minister of Labour and there's industrial action flying all over the states. Not a pronouncement. A law signed by the government you are serving, you can't even issue a statement to the state government to comply with the law. And you say your job is, what is his job then?
Back to the conversation as regards the new national minimum wage. You particularly have been advocating for periodic increase of the new national minimum wage due to the fact that we've been experiencing inflation in the country. Not just you, Congress as well, and the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria also assented to that. Owing to the fact that 6 months down the line, not all the states have complied, what will be the expectation going forward so as to ensure that Nigerians earn a decent wage?
If you follow this analysis, you discover that it's in clear compliance with our initial position. The initial position was that we want to depend on cost of living index. And you look at inflationary trend, you can have at the end of 2024, if it is 3% adjustment to what is happening. What was the price of Gary before? What is it today? You can get it. To almost all employers, it will not be a heavy weight for them to adjust. Or even when we adjust 10%, 20%, By the time we are reviewing the next 3 years, we factor in all those issues because they will assist in cushioning the effect of what we are passing through. But let me take you back small. Part of the issues the president discussed with us was that he didn't want to take absolute decision for subnationals. That some of them were complaining, and that was why whatever they need to agree as minimum wage, that is not just federal. So he's trying to take them into consideration. Now, by the time you saw the minimum wage, those subnationals the president was talking of decided to do better. You see that states are paying 85. The people he's saying that is taking 70 because of their ability to pay. Some are paying 77, some are paying 75 in that order. That shows you that equally we didn't have accurate statistics state by state, on what we need and what we can afford to pay. So, in as much as they will look at what the subnationals can pay, but it should not be as a matter of protest. If what the governors are telling you they can't pay 60,000, it was at the 60-62 that we estimated before we now move on to the presidency before we got 70. But even at that, the beauty of it all was that even before we finished that negotiation, Edo State was paying 70. Of course, we are still going to focus attention on Edo State to see the consequential adjustment. Because up to now, they have not sent us any table from Edo, and that will be an interesting side. However, since they started paying for May, even when we had not concluded. So we have to equally look at it. What is it that they were paying? Is it in line with the table? Because you can see a state that is paying 75,000, and that a state that is paying 70,000 is doing better than them, based on consequential adjustment and the incremental steps. So those are issues that we have to do, but we can't do it without having an agreement, which is a raw material coming from all these states, so that we can question, the process.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
And that's all we can take on today's edition of the program. Join us next week for a fresh edition of the show. I am Sharon Ijason. Thanks for watching, and remember that labor creates wealth.